we're so distracted. We're so busy. We all have different demands that are pressing in, and our demands, everybody's demands look different. For some it's taking care of young children. For some it's taking care of ailing parents. For some it's long work days. It's different for all of us, but I think it's just the key is learning to still ourselves enough in the busy that we realize that invitation, it always exists, and it's the best invitation that we will ever receive in all of our lives. And I know personally, I so often will settle for so much less than I know the Lord has for me. And I've realized that He's in those busy moments. It's just a matter of learning how to see Him, I guess, in the busyness.
Well, maybe you feel overwhelmed and overcommitted, and, maybe that feeling happens even before you get out of bed in the morning, kind of weary from the hustle bustle of life. How about we return to Jesus? And that's the name of this book. Jen Thompson has written this, Return to Jesus, an invitation to abide with Him in every beautiful, stressful, or tedious moment. First of all, Jen, what a beautiful cover. I love this.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. A lot of thought goes into the cover, so that means a lot. I appreciate
Yeah, I
those
like
kind
that.
words.
Yeah, it's nice. So you're a mother of 4. Wow, that's busy.
Yes. Yeah, it is. We have a daughter, 19. Our second will be 17 tomorrow, actually. 15 and 12. So we're there in the tween and teen years.
Yeah, that's a lot going on. You're probably exhausted.
I am. I'm very tired. That's right. I live on coffee. Like you'll see, all day. It's always with me. It doesn't matter what time of the day it is, and I'm not one of those people that can't sleep after I've had coffee. So
Yes.
Yeah.
Caffeine is the Christian legal drug. We all approve of it.
Cheers.
Well,
I love it.
well, welcome to the show. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me. I'm so
Yeah.
excited. This is going to be fun. I can tell already.
Well, let's talk. I love this thought process of returning to Jesus. Life is really busy. We're kind of illustrating that right now, and I think we're all crying out for opportunity to be closer to Jesus. So what is keeping us from Him, and where do we start in recapturing that closeness that we all miss? I think we all kind of want to go back to that salvation moment where, yes, I'm on fire for you, God, and I'm right there with you. And after a while, it just kind of turns into womp, womp, womp. So how do we get back there?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I know for me, I've just had to really come to understand that my relationship with the Lord looks different on different seasons. Like I just said, I'm a mom of 4. Things are really busy. The kids are busy. I'm working more than I ever have. My husband's busy with work and travel. And so I've just really had to learn how to meet with Him in the spaces where I reside. So for me, returning to Jesus is listening to worship music while I'm on the way to pick up my kids from a sporting event. It's praying over them while I'm doing the laundry. It's moving around the house and going from room to room as I'm taking care of things and whispering His name. So, there was a time in my life when maybe it looked more like service outside of the home, volunteering, those kinds of things. But now for me, my ministry is really my home. It's my family. And so I think the key to returning to Jesus in the busy and the hustle is really evaluating what is happening in your life and how can you invite Him into the spaces where you reside. And it doesn't have to be grandiose or complex. There are just really simple ways that we can constantly be abiding with Him throughout the day. And those little invitations that we accept, because He's always inviting us to meet with Him. And when we accept those invitations, it really can transform the most mundane moment into a sacred moment. And we're invited to that all day long.
I love that. I love that because you open your book talking about your love for invitations.
Yes.
And I thought, me too. I really miss running out to the mailbox and expecting something other than statements or advertisements, which is about what we get right now. But you said, your biggest concern is really missing the invitation.
Yes. Yeah, because I think it's so easy. We're so distracted. We're so busy. We all have different demands that are pressing in. And our demands, everybody's demands look different. For some, it's taking care of young children. For some, it's taking care of ailing parents. For some, it's, long work days. It's different for all of us. But I think it's just the key is learning to still ourselves enough in the busy that we realize that invitation, it always exists. And it's the best invitation that we will ever receive in all of our lives. And I know personally, I so often will settle for so much less than I know the Lord has for me. And I've realized that He's in those busy moments. It's just a matter of learning how to see Him, I guess, in the busyness, if that makes any sense.
And to not be pushing Him away, because another point that you make is, along with an invitation, is that, I don't feel good enough, or like, do I really belong? And you talk about how that can hold us back from that intimacy. So tell us a little bit about when that invitation comes, how does God see us?
Yeah, so I really struggled for a while with feeling like I wasn't good enough, that there were these certain ways that I had to meet with the Lord. It looked like, going to church every Sunday, quiet time in the morning, attending prayer group, going to Bible study, serving outside of the home. Like I had these lists of boxes that had to be checked off in order for me to be a good, quote unquote, good Christian girl. And all of those things are wonderful. I mean, going to church is wonderful. Quiet time is wonderful. I'm not saying that those things aren't wonderful, because they are. But for me, it became more about, these are the things I have to do. They just became another thing on my checklist, honestly. Like, I'm a to-do list person. I have a to-do list, right? I always have to-do lists. But my relationship with the Lord kind of became just another to-do list item. And so it was hurried. It was just like everything else in my life. I had to come to this point where I understood the Lord loves me because I'm His child. He loves each of us because we are His children. It's not about what we're doing. It's not about what we're not doing. It's not about our performance. That's the way we're measured in the world. That's the way we show up to the places where we reside, but that's not how the Lord sees us. He just wants to hang out with us, for us to be with Him, for us to spend time with Him and His Word. And it's not a to-do list item, but for me, it became a to-do list item, and it was all about performance. So but the Lord loved me even there. That's the other thing. There's grace for everything. So you don't want to feel guilty or feel condemned for having that kind of relationship with the Lord either. There's grace to cover it all.
I love that.
Yeah.
So in other words, don't miss the invitation.
Yeah. So don't miss the invitation. But you know what? But if you miss the invitation, just like I said, there's grace for that too. There's grace for everything. And that's another thing I really missed also for a long time, was that understanding that, the Lord loves me just as I am, just now, right now.
Yep.
He loves me. It's so freeing to come to that space.
You shared a story that I really connected with about your mom being excluded from communion. A pastor, the first pastor that I just really fell in love with in middle school, I watched him exclude my mother and several others from church, basically. Like, you can come, but you can't participate. She'd been on the worship team. She'd started the worship team. And so a bunch of people were told, you can come back, but no more worship team. And then when they left the church, preached about them from the pulpit. And to this day, that affects me. That was the first, it was the first in a long line of damaging things that pastors did. And so, like, church hurt. I know it's kind of a taboo subject sometimes, but it exists, and how has going deeper with Jesus really helped you deal with that? And especially, like, even be in church settings now, because the ramifications can be so long lasting from experiences like that.
Oh yeah, and like you said, you remember. I mean, it's a deep pain, because this is the place where you're going to be loved, to be accepted. You're hearing the message on Sunday that God's love is for everyone, but then when you're turned away for whatever reason, that's like, wait a minute, this doesn't match up. This doesn't match up with what I'm hearing, and that can be a really deep wound, and one that I think that we don't really talk about enough. So I appreciate you sharing that bit about your story, and I'm sorry that happened to your family too, because it's just really painful. And I talk about it in the book, like you mentioned. Growing up, my mom was excluded from communion, and it just never made sense to me. I thought, how come all of the rest of us can walk up and accept this gift? Communion, I mean, Jesus invited Judas to his Last Supper, but my mom couldn't participate in the remembrance of the Last Supper. It didn't feel right. And it took a really long time to untangle that. So I think for people that are in a place where they have been hurt from the church, I would say, don't be afraid to go there. Like, don't be afraid to deal with that pain. You're not saying anything bad about the Lord. You're not saying anything bad about God. You're talking about very imperfect humans operating in imperfect systems. I mean, the reality is the only perfect human that ever walked the planet was Jesus, and churches are going to mess up. It is inevitable. And I think it's just learning what to do with that pain. For me, it took finding a new church home. It took actually stepping away from church for a while. I had to step away from church, and then re-engage in my relationship with Jesus. I found a different church home. And now, after healing and separation and time, because I really do think there's a reason that we say time is a great healer after time, I'm now able to see that church that hurt me actually works for a lot of people. People meet Jesus there. People find Jesus there. Just because it didn't work for me doesn't mean it doesn't work for everyone. So there's also a forgiveness component, but that doesn't always come easily either. I think it's just taking it to the Lord, right? And being like, oh, this hurts. Like, I have been hurt. I have been seriously hurt, Lord. What do I do with this? And for some, I think it's you wander in the wilderness for a while and you decide, like, with the Lord, where do you want me? I think sometimes people are encouraged to return as long as there's not been, obviously abuse of any kind should never be tolerated. And for some, it's fine. You have to find a new church home. And some people might not like that. I know for me, like my grandmother sat down with my husband and I when we were engaged. We decided not to get married in the church that I had grown up in. And she was devastated. She was just, devastated. She actually told me that basically, like, my marriage wasn't really going to be real, but it would be okay.
Wow. Yikes.
Whoa.
Man.
I know.
Boy.
But then I realized, I was like, this is all she knows. Like, and she's not trying to hurt me. This is truly what she believes. Like, she was trying to help me, So it just also is coming to this understanding of, like, where is she coming from that this is what she honestly believes. And so, yeah, I don't know if that answered the question. I mean, honestly, you could go on and on and on and on forever about church hurt.
No, it does. I think, you hit on the important thing. And it's something my mom still to this day, because I've just had trouble. Like, I literally, like, I can just bristle walking into a church sometimes. So it's hard for me to, like, find a church home. But my mother, wise woman that she is, says that's putting your faith in people, and people are going to mess up. Like, you find a place where you can connect to Jesus. And so, but I think that that's one of the pitfalls of being human, is that a lot of times those attributes that you find in people that have hurt you, you're going to kind of transfer onto God. So I think you hit the nail on the head when you said, like, you have to go deeper with Jesus and find out where he wants you. So yes, you did. That was my long way of saying you did answer the question.
Well, and that's so cool that your mom, like, I love that your mom said that. When I first rededicated my life to Christ, a woman that I worked with, that was one of the things she said to me, because I was really hung up. I was like, I don't know that I can get back into any kind of organized religion. And she said to me, if you're looking for people to basically be perfect, they will always fail. Like, you will always be hurt. But if you're looking to the Lord, you're not going to be hurt in that way. And it just shifted everything for me. So I love that your mom said that to you. Like, that is so wise. I think people will hurt us. Systems will fail us, but God won't. Jesus
And
won't.
by the way, we trip up too, right?
Yes.
Oh,
Every
All the
day.
time.
All
Yeah.
day, every day.
yeah.
All the time. All the time. That's why
And we
we
depend
need,
on his forgiveness.
yes, that's why we need the Lord, because
Yep.
we are all messing up constantly.
I think the thing that maybe makes it hurt so much is that it's a group of people
Yeah.
that are representing him, and so that adds that extra level of ouch.
Yeah.
But when you think about it, it's a group of sinners. So I don't know why I would expect any less.
Yeah. I so appreciate what you said, Jen, about, they're doing what they've been taught. So it's
Yeah.
like it perpetuates itself. And so taking our eyes off of ourselves and seeing it from their perspective really helps, because I think all of us can ID some kind of church hurt. What you two are describing is much deeper, but yeah, I just wanted to say I appreciate what you said about that.
Aw, thank you. Thanks.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about our current climate, which is crazy. I mean, the political tensions are probably at an all-time high. So if you're on one side or the other and you're interested in being on one side or the other, that can be really toxic. How does returning to Jesus help remove the anger, the judgments, the sadness, and the stress that all of that comes from?
Oh my goodness. I love that question so much. So my mantra, the whole return to Jesus mantra, actually started for me originally back in, I guess it was around 2020, because there was so much dissension. So
Oh, especially then. Yeah.
Oh, it was crazy. It was
The powder
crazy. And
keg.
it is crazy now too. Like,
Yeah.
it was just so loud. And I would look on my social feeds and I would see just Christians blasting each other in the name of Jesus, just saying the nastiest things. And I thought, well, I can't imagine if you were face to face, you would be saying this. And also, when did we start worshiping our political parties more than anything else? It just became so toxic. And so I just said, you know what? I don't need to figure this out. I just need to return to Jesus. And so I just went into the scripture. How can I love like Jesus loves? How can I respond in the way that Jesus would want me to respond? Just really, who is Jesus? What is his message? And so I just kept thinking, whenever I would get this kind of like angsty feeling, I just return to Jesus, just return to Jesus. And so I feel like that is 100% was just a huge reason that kind of return to Jesus started. And then once the world kind of shifted back to busy again, then the return to Jesus mantra shifted for me, because life was so crazy and so busy. And that was when I really started to evaluate like my practices and habits. But I would say to anybody that's just feeling that tension, just ask yourself, what would the Lord have me do today? How can I respond in love to those he's placed before me? And remember, you don't have to have all the answers. That's what I tell myself. Like, I don't need to justify my beliefs to people. Like, I just need to abide with the Lord. And so I think just returning to him just kind of simmers that combative nature that seems to be just really high right now.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
really high. It is. It's crazy. Like family members disliking family members, friends dislike people that were really close, like not wanting to be friends anymore. And it's just like, what is going on?
Yeah. It's crazy. And to see that Jesus didn't get too much involved in politics. Paying Caesar was it. Someone tried to trap him. In fact, they tried to get him to pick sides on something, you know, and someone went fishing and
Yes.
found a coin.
But so that's like, yes, this is such a good point. Like just returning to how did Jesus even deal with politics in his time?
Yeah.
Like there we go. Like just I just think of like those what would Jesus do bracelets. Like we should all put those back on right now. And
No joke.
Wherever that
Pay
is,
attention.
find it in the junk drawer and put it
Yeah.
back on.
right.
That's funny. Hey, you so vulnerably share about your experience as a teenager and how ultimately the love of Jesus covered and freed you from so much secrecy and shame. Can you share what that burden of silence has meant in your life? Talk about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm just going to be real forthright here because I feel like one of the things the Lord has called me to in this season of life is just to be very honest and vulnerable. So when I was 19, I was dating my now husband at the time and a freshman in college and found out that I was pregnant. And he and I went back and forth and I chose to have an abortion. And that was something that I really struggled with for a while after I felt like, especially in just Christian communities, I was worried that I had committed the unforgivable sin in the eyes of some people. And I just wouldn't, that was a part of my story I never would share. I spoke at different women's things and MOPS groups, and I would share parts, my testimony, which I like to say I have a colorful past. So I would share my testimony, but that was always omitted. That was the part that I would not speak. And it was a huge burden that I didn't even realize a weight I was constantly carrying. When we have secrets that we keep so close to our hearts that are just locked away, it impacts us, whether we realize it does or not. And one of the big ways it affected my intimacy with the Lord, it affected my intimacy with friends, because they didn't know all of me, and this was a big part of my story. And I was just so afraid what will happen if somebody finds out. And it took a long time, and I mean, story upon story upon story of just what the Lord did to unlock that guarded vault in my heart and to remove that and to get me to a place where, I mean, just a few years ago, I never in a million years would think that I would be talking to anybody, much less you guys, about this, just like but the Lord has done the most incredible things. And what I have learned every time I speak, every time I say those words, it's a really common story. It is, it's a very, very common story. And so often people will come up to me afterwards and just say, thank you for sharing. Me too. I have the same story. Some people say, they've never told anybody. I've had multiple people say they've never told anybody. And then there are some people that share freely. So I just very much feel for myself that now I want to share these parts of my story because I think everybody, if we're being honest, there are things, people have things in their lives. And I'm not saying things need to be, you don't need to broadcast, you don't need to share with everybody. It's different for everyone. For some person, it might just be talking to a counselor. It might be admitting to their spouse. It might be a trusted friend, a pastor. But it's just really just learning to open up to the Lord and being like, Lord, I just prepare me to share with somebody, and just making that your prayer. Because even I think for most people, even if it doesn't feel like it's a burden to stay silent, I really do think it is.
So what you're saying is breaking that silence, talking to somebody, that begins the healing right there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Just somebody, just anybody. It can, well, one, and it helps you know you're not alone. I think that one of the ways that the enemy tricks us is to think like, well, everybody's going to hate you. Nobody's going to like you. You're going to lose all of your friends. You can never be forgiven. And that is so far from what I would imagine usually happens. I mean, usually, like, if I think about it, if I'm sitting across from someone and they open up and they tell me a really deep part of their heart, I feel a connection to them. I feel closer to them. Right. I don't think many people's reaction would usually be like, oh, I can't believe you,
Well, you're talking about intentionality, not just going out and blurting it out, but intentionally when God leads to share that thing. So just summing this little portion up, tell us, what does it feel like to get past that oppressed pain and regret? Because there has to be some sort of release, I would imagine.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and like you said, 100% it's intentionality. Like it's not like then you just start telling everybody everything all the time. Like it definitely is.
That's oversharing.
That's oversharing.
Yeah, there you go.
Or you can write a book and put it in there and then just tell anybody.
Yeah. Well, thank you for doing that. I appreciate that. And I think that you probably are granting a lot of people the freedom to get away from the shame. So kind of turning the tables a little bit, you quote Lisa TerKeurst. We love her, of course. In thinking about how busy life can get, you quote her saying no isn't an unnecessary rejection. Now, I loved this quote, so I had to put it in here because no can be the best freeing word and yet the most difficult word. She goes on to say it's a necessary protection of our best. Yes, I love that. So let's talk about the wisdom found in saying no and balancing our best yes replies and when no is the right thing to say.
Yes, absolutely. So I love the word no now. Like I never thought that I would, because I'm a people pleaser by nature, and so it was really hard for me to not just say yes to all the invitations.
Totally get that.
All of it. But life, like we were talking about, it's so busy. And we all have so many demands that are coming our way each and every day. And what I started to realize was, number one, everybody in my family was exhausted. Like not just me, because I'm managing the calendar for the whole family for the most part. So when I'm saying yes to every birthday party for them, every sporting event, the things at church, all the things, like everybody's tired, everybody's grumpy. It's not pleasant. So I feel like we take an aerial view of the calendar. That's what I call it, an aerial view, where I'll look and say, okay, what's going on this month? And then intentionally block off days with no plans. And it can be a hard thing to do, but it's so good for our family because I feel like if you think about it, spontaneity is for the most part, seem to enjoy the freedom to just have a day where you can do whatever you want. But I feel like it's so rare. Like it's a very rare
Right.
thing in our culture. For people just to have a day where it's like, what are you doing? Oh, nothing today. Like you don't hear that very often.
Yeah.
But I think really incredible things can happen when we allow ourselves to have days with nothing on the calendar for our whole family. And then
Yeah.
and then we can find opportunities that maybe otherwise would never have existed because we're so busy running from here to there. And then we miss the people around us too, because we're just so busy. We're all so busy that we don't see what the Lord has for us. We're
Probably
too
one of those moments where your kids are not too happy with you, but looking back, will say, thanks, Mom. So you might have to wait a few years for the thanks. But I can picture that, you're educating them as well of what matters. I can remember telling my kids, this little group of people here, your family, we're the ones who are going to still be here 20, 30, 40 years later. And I actually have heard that echoed back to me now. So it can take some time, but I'm a grandma now. So I'll just say it's coming. It's
Well
coming.
done, Sally.
And I appreciate that. Yeah, I appreciate that you shared that because sometimes that is our responsibility to find our best yes and use that big old no word.
Yeah. Yeah, and also too, I would over explain sometimes. Like if I didn't have anything on the calendar and somebody would like ask me, why I'd feel like I had to give a long answer, but I've also realized like no, we're busy.
No
It
is
works.
no.
And they're just you don't have to give this big explanation for why you can't do something. You can just say no, that won't work. And
Because you need to make room to return to Jesus.
yes, exactly.
Literally. If you're exhausted, you don't have anything. Yeah, you don't have anything to bring to the table. So yeah, I love that part. I'm glad
Thanks.
you put that in there.
Thank you.
So if there are times when saying no is okay, how about saying goodbye? Are there times when maybe that's appropriate?
Yes.
I know. It's hard.
Yeah, it's really hard. It is, yeah, that's really hard.
You can feel like you're being a bad person.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you're not. You're not. I think one of the things that I'm still learning, because we're always still learning, is that just because you've forgiven somebody doesn't mean that the relationship is it's going to go back to what it was. Sometimes you forgive somebody and the best way to love them is to release them. Like it's
From
not
afar.
healthy for you.
You stand over there and I love you from here.
That's funny. I love you so much better over here than over there. Yes.
Sorry, I'm very much connected to that. Go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, that was great. I loved it. But yeah, it is like I feel like we can think that we have to maintain relationships and you can love someone, you can forgive someone, and sometimes it's just time, toxic relationships, abusive relationships, manipulative relationships. The list can go on and on and on and on. And sometimes it's just not good. We're dealing with that with some of our kids right now. The teenage years can be tricky friendship years. So I feel like I'm relearning through them, like, oh wait, oh yeah, this is what happens sometimes.
And-
Friendships don't work.
You mentioned
Yeah.
teenage years. I did want to go back. I know that Sally already thanked you, but especially, your mom talked of your teen years as the black years. And thank you for sharing about that too. As somebody who, obviously we had very different experiences, but I was hospitalized for mental health issues for being suicidal for the first time when I was a teenager. And for the longest time, I was so scared. I was like you, I was scared to share that part of myself, really until I got into Christian radio. And even then, it took about a year for me to realize that God can use these tough times to speak to other people. And even now, I enter some very dark times. So just thank you for being authentic and transparent. because that gives other people the courage to do so. And sharing these stories, we obviously we want to share the good times, but man, sharing what God can do in the bad times too is so important. So thank you for that. Yeah, I appreciate
Well,
that.
thank you. And thank you for sharing that too. I mean, very much so. I appreciate you sharing that also. Cause yeah, it's easy to talk about all the good things that are happening in our lives, but I feel like it's really helpful for people to understand that not everything is, this Pinterest board world, this Instagram feed world. I think it's and I feel like that's the measuring stick that we use sometimes, and so it's just yeah. And my mom and the black years, I think she says I literally wore black, but I think it was just more of a metaphorical thing. 'Cause I
You
do
weren't like
not
Goth.
remember any time in my life when I was wearing just black. But I think I just was in a dark space. And so I think that's what it was to her, was that. Yeah.
If it's about clothing, my husband is in the black years now because he does not like colors.
Nothing but black clothes.
Yep. All black.
I think about, I was just thinking about one thing we haven't touched on yet, and that is what helps us decide whether it's time to say goodbye or not. It's talking about what is the reason behind the way people are behaving. And I loved it how you said, ask the question, are they acting this way because they're tired, hungry, thirsty, they lack money? What is it? So when I turn my eyes off of myself and say, well, what is leading them to act and behave the way they are, really changes my whole outlook as to whether, to say goodbye or not.
Yeah. Yeah, because I think there's a difference between like a pattern of behavior, like somebody that really is maybe being consistently manipulative or just verbally toxic or whatever that it may be, versus, okay, something is going on with them. Like this is so out of character. I think just asking, like, hey, I think there's nothing wrong with saying, hey, like, you seem off. Something doesn't seem the same. Like, what's going on with you? And if they say nothing, maybe they don't want to talk about it. That's fine too. But I do think that we need to get out of ourselves in relationships and look at where is the other person coming from? What's their story? What are they going through? Like, I know now, currently in my life, I have people I love that are going through really, really, really hard things. Two of my closest friends just lost their parents. A friend that I'm going to go actually see later on this afternoon was just diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. I mean, there's really heavy things happening in their lives and the lives of their loved ones. So there's a solid chance that those friends of mine might go to the places that they always go, but not be smiling, not be engaging, not be asking somebody else, how are they doing? But it's because they are hurting big, huge hurts. And so I think that's just a practice that I try to, if somebody's just being, whatever, unkind, aloof, off, just try, like, what's going on with them? And there's a difference there between that versus a relationship that it is time to this is a pattern of behavior that's hurting me in a way that I can't participate in anymore. That's like
I love that delineation between what's repetitive and what's like, wow, they don't typically behave this way. What is going on? And that's part of a relationship, right? The highs and the lows. And so you can't have it without some grace involved. So I really appreciate that part.
Well, absolutely. And and we want that grace for ourselves too, right?
Yes.
I want to know that I can have a really bad day or a bad season or just be off or more stressed out or whatever. And my friends aren't going to walk away from me. I think because different seasons, especially really busy ones, we might not respond, we might not text as fast or call back as fast or whatever. But if we know the heart of the person and what's happening in their lives, then we're, I think, have just more grace for all of the things versus being like, why aren't you responding to me? Why, okay, I'm not going to talk to you anymore because you're not responding to me. Well, that seems not right, but yeah.
Well, a lot of times we need that kind of head raising moment, I'll call it, of somebody calling it out. And I'm like, oh, I didn't even realize I was being aloof. I thought I was hiding my emotions, And so somebody being kind enough to say, hey, you seem a little down today. What's happening?
Yeah. And then that could be an invitation for you then to open up. And maybe, like you said, you didn't even know you needed to open up or talk. And then somebody just asking can be like, oh, I needed that. I really needed that. Yeah.
What if, obviously returning to Jesus and spending time with him is one thing. What about serving with Jesus? And obviously that comes from the right spot. You're not doing it to get in good with God, but I feel like a lot of times service is a response to him. And he's so good. I want to serve you, God. How do we start?
Yeah, absolutely. That's such a good question. Well, I think for me, it goes back to kind of that whole message of return to Jesus, just understanding that there's an invitation that exists for each of us, and that invitation is unique, just like our relationship with him is unique. So I think serving with Jesus, I think the key word there is with, like, where is he working? Where is he calling me to go meet with him? And it becomes less about us and more about him. And so I think it can just be part of a daily prayer. Like, Lord, where can I serve today? Who can I serve today? Open my eyes, open my heart, open my mind. Because part of being, busy and distracted is we forget to look up and out and see, like, there's a whole world of people all around us that have needs. And sometimes it could just be a mom at Target whose toddler is melting down, and she just needs you to walk up to her and say, hey, you're doing an amazing job. I see you. How can I help you? Or whatever. I think sitting across from somebody at a waiting room who maybe has a tear going down, offering them a Kleenex. Like, I just think such a huge part of serving with Jesus is asking him for the eyes and the ears and the heart. Yeah, that's I think. And
I love that.
And you're right. Like, service is good. I mean, it's good. Like, serving it's a really good thing.
Absolutely. From the right spot, it feels great. It's like we're doing the right thing. Yeah. Makes a lot of sense. I agree with that. Well, Jen, thanks so much for your time. This is really good. Now, you've got a blog. Talk about that.
I do. So yeah, thanks for having me. I've really enjoyed our conversation so much. And I just appreciate this time. You can find me on trulyyoursjen.com. And I also have an author website, jenthompsonauthor.com. And my socials, basically it's Truly Yours Jen. Truly Yours Jen, Facebook, Instagram, all those things.
Awesome. Okay, so it's return to Jesus, an invitation to abide with him in every beautiful, stressful, and tedious moments, because there's lots of those.
There are so many of those all of the time.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you so much. I really appreciated this time and talking to y'all. And yeah, it's been a lot of fun.
Oh, you're welcome.